Uh, Now I'd like to go to Martin Brechbiel, MMR, for scratch building project. Martin, thank you.
Okay, let's see if I can get what happens. Hey, I'm always amazed it worked. Well, that's not what I wanted it to do. There we go. Okay, well, that's a waste of a slide anyhow, so we'll just go into the first slide, other than a title. About roughly a year ago, I sat down and decided I was going to build a bunch of cars. So first thing I did, I built a bunch of flat car frames, or basically what I call blanks, because they're a blank slate, a blank canvas, whatever you want to call it. Once you have these parts, you can build anything you want on top of it. Just grab one off the stack and go forward. So I have what, 8 of them here? I think I have 2 left. I've built about 6 other cars not using those because I wanted longer, or I had some cars that had steps in them and I didn't want to cut these frames up anymore, and I just wanted to use these as they were. So they're pretty much basic. You have some under frame. You run the train line in as you build these, because putting it in later is really, really painful. Bending brass around an S curve takes more talent than I have when it's 33 thousandths brass. It just does not want to go around an S curve very nicely and cleanly. You can do it, but the easier way to do it is just to take your scalpel or your X-Acto knife and cut 2 holes in it and drop it in and patch it. It's a lot faster, a lot less painful, and while it will minimize the colorful language, it's much more satisfying to get it done and move on, as opposed to fighting with it.
Now, quick question: is that colorful language? Is that the weathering portion of it, or the painting portion?
No, that's the when you're practicing your Klingon or other languages that nobody else speaks, and you don't want to upset the neighbors, the wife, or small children that might be outside playing. So I wanted to build a pair of water tank cars, and I've built tank cars, water tank cars of all sorts before. What's underneath this wood is electrical conduit from a Home Depot. You go down the electrical aisle, you can get this gray tubing. It's just right for an O-scale tank car. You got to buy, I think, 12 feet of it. So you're going to make a lot of tank cars, but you're not going to run out anytime soon, and it's incredibly economical. And it cuts nice and smoothly. You run it right through the bandsaw. You can cut it with a hacksaw and just sand it straight if you want. I don't remember what these are. I think they're 3x12. So it's a wooden tank car. It's one board at a time. This is I forgot what size hole this is. Probably 3/8 or a 1/2 inch hole. That's just brass tubing. You just drill a hole through the conduit first. Don't try to drill through the wood. It won't work. It'll rip this apart unless you have an incredibly good Forstner bit. And I don't have one that good. But this is just brass tubing, some square stock, soldered together, some flat stock on top, solder it all together, drop it down in a hole. This stops it at the height, keeps it where you want it. You can cut this off to whatever height you want, and you can adjust your dome here, your hatch, and then just build the wood around it. You can patch this all later with some caulk or some goo and paint it black and call it tar for sealing it. The ends, these are just going to hold it in place. You can see it's rubber band in place. Let's see, a picture of the end. Well, don't have an end shot. The ends of this are just scribe siding. I try to get it in alignment with the opposite end. I usually fail. It's usually skewed a little bit. I figure that doesn't really matter too much. You can only look at one end at a time. If you try to line it up in your head, it doesn't work very well. Underbody, well, it hasn't changed too much, but it's got a couple of bolsters. They're my castings, your needle beams, and I've started ever so much fun wrapping of silk thread and barrel hoops. These are Grant Line parts, and you can actually glue this silk thread to the underside into the little groove wrap it around, glue it to the top, trim it off, and then the little only thing that holds this in place then is the grant line casting. So they're staggered in a pattern, offset them. It's a lot of fun. It only takes you a few hours of your life. Actually, it takes a few evenings of your life because that glue takes forever to set all these individual pieces. It's kind of maddening, but it's very satisfying once completed. We'll put a full underbody in, or as close to a full body underbody as I'm going to put into it. Silk thread all through all 4 times. K-brake casting. I'm not sure which one. I think that's looks like a Wiseman Model Services one. Some precision scale lever hangers. I think those are actually, I think, Grant Line levers. The clevises I make out of chopping up Grant Line turnbuckles. A little bit of chain going into the stirrup over here on the brake. Some brass wire holding it all together. Just flip this over, I hope. Yes. So you flip it over, you can see what keeps the barrel from rolling off or sliding off the ends. You have a nice cradle and uprights at each end, brass wire going into the turnbuckle castings. These are actually through the end blocks or into the end blocks and match up. Well, actually, the holes are drilled through, so they do match up with the, these are Tichy castings on the ends. I really like the Tichy castings because that's a nice rust brown color. It beats gray or black. So, you know, they look good with just a little bit of paint on them, or no paint at all if you forget about them. Different angle from the same thing. And you can see how everything goes together. There's a brake wheel over here somewhere on the end with this little platform with a ratchet and pull casting. You just drill that out. I think that's a brass one, so it's precision scale. You just drill it out so your brake shaft goes through it. And then just drop everything into place. And I literally do mean drop everything into place. I never really attached these tanks to the car. What holds them in place is friction and gravity. They are removable. A little bit of laser cut ladder stock on the ends. You can see the brake wheels better here. Some Scale City Design stirrup steps. They make really nice white metal parts. They bought out Keel Line a number of years ago and are a really great resource for detail parts. Got a handle now on the top of the hatch here. There's a little hinge, these little orange hinges. I don't have no idea where I got them from, but they just happen to fit that little space perfectly. Just keep everything and throw it into a parts bin. You'll probably need it someday. And well, we've got an air hose on the back end here, but we got to drain the tank somehow. So a valve casting, I think that came from Wiseman again, and it was partially cored out. So I drilled it out, added some tubing. This is actually open tubing that actually goes into the end of the barrel, or the tank in this case. No, it doesn't operate. I'm not going to carry actual water around. And splash some paint on everything. And since the tank is actually removable, you can paint it a different color very conveniently. Just yank it out of there. Literally, you have to yank it out of there. It's really pretty tight. These nut bolt and washer castings on the inside actually pinch it into place pretty tightly. I had a suggestion from a friend, add a walkway, so add some, I think those are 3x4s or 4x4s underneath, and just some HO 3x12 on top. I got a bag of HO 3x12. I use it for all kinds of things, even in O scale. Makes great roof wall. So this is, I don't know what color green that is. I don't know what color red this is, but green and red, it's very Christmassy. It was around Christmas when I was painting this, now I think about it. A little touch up with some black paint here and there, some roof brown on the walk. See my brass wire got a little bend in it here. Probably had to force that into place. It's probably under some tension. And since I built 2 of them, this is the other one. They're kind of hard to tell apart, but they are slightly different. And I usually can or can't tell them apart depending on what time of day it is and how much sleep I've had. So there's the other one, with a little red paint on top of the handle, just so you can see it a little better. You know, little details like that. And you can see I added that little tar around the tank, to seal that all off. So these little things add up real quick. That's it. We're done with those two cars. And
The only comment-
questions are, go ahead and get me into trouble with questions.
Yeah, so just a question, you know, did you ever think about maybe starting with a sealed container and filling it half full with a liquid? So now the car would actually have movement of, I mean, it's just, I just look at
Yeah.
that, I think that would be so cool if you built it around where it actually, so as it was on a layout, it would actually have the simulated motion of some level of liquid. You could do it and it would weight the car.
Oh, it would.
Be a purpose.
I neglected to mention, those cars are weighted. There's a hunk of 3mm sheet lead inside the tank. But having a liquid that actually moves, so you know the car comes to a stop, but it doesn't come to a stop.
Yeah, like kind of it could actually bounce a little bit.
Yeah, it could have a little extra momentum on the added special effect momentum.
For the next one, that'll be an added feature.
Well, if I could seal the car, if I could really seal it.
You build around it. You basically you
Yeah.
get the brass skills to build a brass tank.
Yeah.
Get them half full of liquid, seal it completely, and then just use that as the form to build the wood around.
Yeah. I have built some brass tanks. I've usually avoided leaving anything in them, fearing that I would heat them up with a torch later and it would blow up on me. But
Martin, you're only one step away from having to make that valve working, you know.
yeah, I know. I'd have to go. I think I've seen, actually, it's probably doable. If you can make brakes work in O-scale, you can probably make that valve work. And I've seen working brakes. Who is it? Bernie Kopensky has working brakes on some of his Civil War cars. You turn the brake wheel, and the brakes actually work on one end of the car. And those cars only had brakes on one truck, so it's actually a fascinating special effect. And I have can't remember the name of the kit, but it has a brake wheel that actually does actuate the chain at the bottom and hook it into the system. Doesn't set the brakes, but it does have some working aspects. Somebody spends a lot of time on that car. Oh, anything else?
Now, what kind of liquid are you going to put in there? Mercury?
No. No. I've got enough environmental disaster zones that people can lay at my feet. I'm not going to add another one. I have enough lead to cause enough trouble already in my shop. I don't know. We'll think of something.
Just a light brass tank. I mean, if you think about it, if you had a brass tube,
Yeah.
the right diameter, cut it off, solder two ends on it, and put a little opening in one and another little hole. Put the liquid in, then seal that. Just build around it, and you probably can get by with water. If you have filled it with water, I bet the weight would be heavy.
Yeah.
But then that would give the slosh, because the idea is the slosh is what makes it interesting.
Exactly. I know. I'm following you right along with it. I think that would be a lot.
I mean, that would, to me, to build a car like that would make it worth the work to build around it.
It'd be fun to try. Well, I've got some brass tank car ends. I've got some brass pipe actually.
But
they match.
The problem with this is there's no way when you get done you can't make a video.
Oh, digging me into a deeper hole as we go.
No, it's actually not that much more work than what you did if you stop and think about it.
Oh no, no.
A few percent.
Well, we need the sound effects also, the water sloshing in it too.
Now the thing is, are you also going to design it so it when you're going loading and unloading. So, I mean, the characteristics of it change.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Hmm.
probably getting into a realm of operations that's way beyond my capacity or desire to explore.
Martin, I think we're heading down a rabbit hole here.
I think we're off into the weeds, into the neighbor's yard now.
Yeah, I think so too. So Martin, thank you so much for doing this. It's a great looking car. And once again, you have brought scratch building into reality
Yeah,
And-
trying.
and demonstrated that, it's really just taking bits and pieces and some common sense and some creativity and building a model. It's not rocket science. And I really do appreciate you bringing this down to a level where people can understand it and what's involved.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about that building that tank car, you can go back and build that classic dollar car article from the late 50s for the water tank car. I can't remember the name of the company, but I've built 3 or 4 of them. But the decals for that are available,
Yeah.
so I may come back to that someday. We build yet another wooden tank car.
Fantastic. I look forward to it. Thanks again, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Okay.